Hello, and welcome to the Dogfight, a podcast dedicated to the London Spitfire and Overwatch League. Fasten your seatbelts and observe the no smoking sign because today we'll be discussing the Spitfire's new lean look, the optimistic results of last week, and their future matchups. I am your captain, havokpus as always. I'm flying this plane. It's another solo episode. Things are kind of disjointed around here lately. People have lives. I think definitely once the Overwatch League off-season hits, we will definitely be trying to figure out what to do with the show. Maybe it's just going to be transitioning towards me just recording a solo episode, since there's not usually that much to cover, and it's, usually the opinions are about the same, as well as, there's not a bunch to cover. It's not like if anyone listens to Bodied, our main Cloud9 podcast, there's lots more to talk about. There's a lot more events happening. There's a lot more to kind of go back and forth with this. It's just, maybe there's like some roster news or something, but most of the time it's just, oh, well, we won or we lost, how did we look and what can we do to get better? I understand that having another co-host certainly does, enhance the experience and enhance the conversation, but especially if it's, they're just going to be, agreeing with each other's points, it kind of doesn't add to the conversation much, but it's something that we will be thinking about. I apologize if anyone is sort of looking forward to having, this rousing conversation. It's just me sort of rambling like an idiot, but we will definitely try to address this show and maybe, what goes on with it, who knows, but we will definitely try to make this work. I really don't want to abandon the show because it is kind of fun to maybe go a little bit more in depth. We do talk about this kind of stuff on Bodied, but not maybe into the level of detail that we would on this show. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, let's get into some news. So the London Spitfire somewhat unexpectedly announced that they have trimmed the fat on the roster, basically. So Hureg, Tizzy, Hagapen, and Wuhyal have moved to inactive status. They will not be playing for the rest of the season. I believe they're all in Korea. If I believe they can still play if they really need them. I'm not quite sure, but I mean, I guess they would never be able to play because they're like an ocean away, And it's very interesting. I kind of understand this movement, but at the same time, not understand it. With this move, London's now basically going to be focusing on a core roster, the reigning players that we've usually been seeing. So, Gesture, Fury, Birdring, Prophet, Nuss, Bidossin, and Closer. Just a really tight, strong core. And I kind of agree with this, especially after listening to Susie's points about why they made this move. For Hureg, Birdring is better. There's no way Hureg is going to stay reasonable playing time. They've been practicing Pharah with both Prophet and Birdring. Again, Hureg is kind of irrelevant. Hagapen, there's no way you start him over Bidossin. Bidossin is just the better Zenyatta player. Bidossin, I think, brings a lot better aggressiveness. I think he's more impactful, and I have to agree. Wuhyal is the head scratcher. I like both Wuhyal and Fury. I think they bring very important parts to the diva role. The only reason I think you would pick Fury is because maybe Fury can play a bit more characters, so he's a bit more flexible, as well as his playstyle is better suited for how we like to play. Wuhyal plays a little differently than Fury. Playstyles kind of clash, and that makes creating strategies difficult, because if you're constantly switching in between divas, or if one day, okay, we're going to play with Fury, so you have this certain flow going, and then the next match, it's no, we're playing with Wuhyal now, so we have to completely change how we play. I really like Wuhyal. I'm really sad that we lost him, especially just from a personnel standpoint. I mean, the dude is charming as hell. And I really like, watching him in the, there was like the little Spitfire answers internet comments or whatever. He was, just really funny. He's really nice. But that, that's done. So, sorry, Wook y'all. As for Tizzy, I feel really bad about this. I mean, I was really wanting to see Tizzy play. I think that having him in the rotation could create a lot of more versatility with strategy and can have a lot more different approaches to the game and how we play around certain maps or certain teams. I think having a second main tank in the lineup is very important, especially for London, who's, I think, a bit one-dimensional in their strategy. They looked better this week, and I'll be getting to that in a minute, but I think Tizzy could have added a lot, and to have him not even play a single game was really frustrating. I think Susie did say that the team just is much more comfortable with Jester, and I understand that. Synergy is very important. But it just feels kind of heartbreaking. The dude didn't even get a chance to play. I mean, sure, he was cashing in a good Overwatch League paycheck, but, to not even see playtime is really unfortunate, especially, I think, for other players who are like, I got on a team, I showed that I was worthy of Overwatch League, but I'm not on the stage, and I think that's really sad. But I think this is somewhat of a good decision. The London no longer has to focus on, okay, we have to come up with all these different strategies for all these different permutations that a 12-man roster has. What if Hurig's playing? Well, we have to play like this, and we have to do this and this. Or what if Hagapen's playing with Closer instead of Nuss and Bedosidan? Oh, well, we have to play like this. Well, what if Nuss is playing with Hagapen? Oh, it's, there's too many balls to juggle, basically. With this 7-core roster, the coaches can now give their complete undivided attention to the starting lineup. They don't have to be bouncing back and forth between players or groups of players. They can just go, all right, team, we're up against, San Francisco and Seoul this week. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to need to focus on to win. And I think that's smart. The 12-man thing clearly wasn't working. They were having a lot of internal issues with it. This, clears things up so much, and I think it did show a little bit in their play this week. I think there is still maybe, what's the opposite of a silver lining? Is it like a gray lining, a dark cloud? I don't know. But my one issue is that I do think having a 12-man roster is valuable. Maybe not to the extent that London wanted to do with mixing and matching. Maybe do something to where it was much more like previously, where the rosters were separate. There were clear defined borders of which team would start, which team would play with who. And I think that, you just have internal scrims, you have different methods of attacking a problem instead of just, we're going to play like this against every opponent. We can go, well, now we have two methods. We have the A team and the B team, and it kind of gives you some versatility. I think where London did go wrong is maybe with the mixing and matching. I think trying to have all these playstyles and everything bleed into each other, I think made things too confusing and I think a bit too difficult to handle. So I think that's why we experienced some trouble maybe towards the end of Stage 2. Stage 3, for sure. And yeah, that's my thoughts on it. This did happen a while ago. I apologize for the late news. I think we recorded last week's episode, and like the next day, like Cloud9 always seems to do this to us regarding Overwatch League news. But like the next day they announced like, yeah, we've gotten rid of like 4 of our dudes. And it's just like, okay, well, we missed that, but great. But yeah, so moving on to match results, I guess, since I have no more to say about the roster change. London had a 2-0 week, and they actually looked better. They played against San Francisco Shock and Seoul Dynasty, both in 3-2 wins. So London looked better. Birdring is definitely back. His form is looked a lot better on Widowmaker, as well as other characters on McCree, on Genji. He's back. He looks great. I am very pleased to see Birdring playing at that form that we all know that he can reach. So to get to that form is great. The matches were shaky, though. Against San Francisco Shock, like Blizzard World, none of the teams could score on A. Both teams got held at A, and that's really sort of, it was really weird, especially, but it was also kind of a worrying sign, And against San Francisco, London created the situation for themselves again where it's, okay, you're up 2-0, you only need to win one map to seal the deal, and ultimately win the match. You don't have to play for a map 5, map 4 doesn't really even matter, technically, unless you really want to have a really good map differential. But, they just, not clicking in the second half, and that's somewhat concerning. You're not able to really shut out, especially since against San Francisco. San Francisco definitely better than the start of the season, but I don't think we should be struggling against San Francisco. They do have some good players. They have Nevix, they have Architect, they have Super, they have Sinatra. They do have some, some of the more newer additions. I think Moth also. They have some really great newer additions that are definitely looking better than the sort of starting roster for San Francisco. But I think we should have an edge over San Francisco. Yeah, I think our players are just better than theirs. So to narrowly win out against San Francisco was a bit concerning. I do believe we did pretty much sweep Nepal in a 2-0, which is great. It's better than going on Oasis and praying to every conceivable god that you may or may not believe in, hoping that we can not embarrass ourselves again. So that's good, I guess. But it is kind of worrying that you narrowly beat San Francisco of all teams. Moving on to the Seoul match, however, they're same kind of deal. There were really great parts. There were great parts where it's like, yes, the team is looking so much better. Birdring is back. Prophet and Gesture doing so much work. And Gesture and Prophet, they look great. I think Gesture also looked, just hands down, like, in terms of just team coordination and what he was doing, he looked way better than he did before. At least last week. Or, well, not last week, the week 1. You know what I mean. So they looked better. But I think the issue is that, it's on the payload type maps, I think especially, London's sort of slow-moving kind of style really hurts them. We saw this in San Francisco Shock. We saw this in the Seoul match. We saw this even in week 1. London has a really hard time with A-takes. And I mentioned this in the previous episode. London really struggles with A-takes because they play things too slowly. We get rolled on defense. We really struggle to hold down that point A for a long amount of time. And then when it's our turn, we really struggle to go against the clock. I think that London, maybe the team just doesn't think about the clock. And I think that might actually be a good thing. You can just slow and steady, just like, okay, don't worry about the clock. Play how you want to play. You avoid more mistakes. You avoid the stress of having to worry about that buzzer. But it is a factor, and to see us, we're not getting point A's. We're really struggling to get point A's. It's really frustrating to see because they have this really slow style. I would really like to see them ratchet up their tempo game and make it to where they can play at a faster, more accelerated pace, especially, on these hybrid maps where you're having to take point A. I think on GCP we look great. I think, especially on Hanamura, I think Hanamura is one of our best maps. So it's really good to see that we've retained that. But I really want to see some faster tempo play. I really want to see us ratchet it up and start rolling on point A. Because if we can't roll on point A, I think it really makes it more difficult for the team to do stuff, because that's either a lost map already or a map where it is very difficult to win because the time bank situation of, well, Seoul has like an incredible amount of time left while we only have maybe like a minute. So I would really like to see the team work on that. And I think they do. I think now with this slimmer roster, the coaches can easily just go, well, there's your problem right there. We're going to work on this. And they're just going to keep grinding it out until they get it right. But I guess as a whole, the week was good. 2-0, which is great. better than when week 1, when you looked kind of lost. And you're showing some form that we haven't seen for a little while, especially from Birdring. So I am hoping that this trend continues. I am hoping we can win quicker and not like a 3-2 where we're like really having to rely on winning that last map. I really don't like that. I think we shouldn't be relying on winning the last map. But as for going forward, so London's schedule is very interesting because London has the potential to go 1-1 for the rest of Stage 1. And I'll elaborate on this a little bit. So I'll elaborate and talk about that a little bit and then go into predictions specifically for Week 3. So for Week 3, we face against Boston and Dallas. Boston has been looking like garbage, and they're definitely showing themselves as a patch team. You know, they had this incredible undefeated regular stage streak. I think they went, you know, the 10-0 streak for Boston. Now they're just really struggling, and they're really hurting. You know, that's not good for Boston. That's not good for Boston fans. You know, so I think Boston is incredibly beautiful. But then you look at Dallas. Surprisingly, Dallas has improved to such new heights that no one could ever conceive. You know, you have this new coach. I think Effect being out of the picture for a little bit has also helped. Maybe just from an environment standpoint, but their new coach and how they're running things feel look great, especially with this meta. It seems that the meta really favors the Dallas Fuel. So Dallas Fuel can potentially beat us, and they look very scary at the moment. They have a lot of momentum, they have a lot of confidence, and that is scary. And then looking at Week 4, it's the Valiant and Gladiators, the LA Gauntlet, if you will. Valiant, I think we can beat. We beat them before. I don't think the Valiant pulls out anything too super special that we really need to be worried about. Gladiators, on the other hand, you have Fisher, and I believe also Void even. If I'm not sure if Void is playing yet, but you know, the Gladiators have a really strong team. They have Fisher, who is able to just really enable and create so much more space for his other teammates. You know, Surefour is a really strong DPS. You have Hydration as well. Shaz is a nutty support who can just randomly all of a sudden turn into a DPS player and just start getting kills and stuff. Gladiators are difficult. We have lost to them before, and London really doesn't do well against opponents that they have lost to before. You know, look at Houston Outlaws, for example. We've only beat them once out of the whole season. And LA Gladiators, I don't think we've ever beaten them once. I think maybe once, but you know, the rest of the time, you know, we lost them in preseason. When Fisher came on, we lost to them, and you know, it's, you know, not a good look. And I think they definitely have the potential to lose to the Gladiators. And then the final week, you're against Florida and Philadelphia Fusion. Florida is incredibly weak. We've never had problems with them. We should continue to not have problems with Florida. Philly, on the other hand, they have introduced Sato into the roster after his incredible penalty for, I think it was running like a boosting company. So after his punishment was served, his time was served, Sato is back in the Philly lineup, and Philly are looking as strong as ever. Maybe a little bit stronger now that they have a tank that maybe plays, I guess, more how you expect a tank to play. But, you know, they have that. I think Hotba is also playing with Sato in the lineup. You know, you have Carpe, you have Snillo, you have EQO. You know, you have Shadowburn. You have all these, you know, these crazy DPS players on the side of Philly, as well as a really solid support line and a really good tank line. Again, we could lose to Philly just in how strong Philly are. Ever since Stage 2, really, Philly found their stride and have continued to just look good and improve themselves. So each week, we definitely have this potential to win one and lose one. And while that's good, I suppose, I think from how it is from a standpoint of, well, how'd you do this stage? to only win all, a little bit more than half, since we did 2-0 week 2, and I guess 0-2 week 1. So, to kind of again maybe break even for the second stage in a row, especially with the pedigree of talent that we have, that's kind of, unsettling. Hopefully they can, improve with this slim down roster and beat the likes of Gladiators in Philly and Dallas, but it remains to be seen. But I guess moving on to specifically the Week 3 matches, we do play against Boston and Dallas. Like I said, Boston is completely beatable. They've been struggling for the whole stage. They've been trying to refine their footing. The wind is out of the sails. They are broken. And that makes it so much easier to beat them when they just have no clue what to do. They're grasping at straws. You really take advantage of that because your strategies are crisper. They're practiced, they're effective, and meanwhile they are unsure of themselves. And I think that London can easily defeat Boston. Boston's kind of had maybe a little bit of a London rivalry. We've kind of been back and forth with them, but I think we can beat them this time. They're looking like to be a definite patch team, and I think that this is an easy win. As for Dallas, on the other hand, I'm extremely nervous. Dallas has improved by leaps and bounds, and partially thanks to their new coach. So I think London could definitely lose. Everyone on Dallas is now playing confidently. Everyone's playing like they're actually on the same page. OG, I think, has maybe been the main tank that Dallas has been waiting for, and he's finally found himself in the team. Taimu, my God, has Taimu always been this good? Watching him play the past few weeks in Overwatch League, he has looked amazing, especially on the Widow. I mean, his Widow, oof, he just hitting headshot, just clicking on those heads, hitting them left and right. And I think this is a definite place where London need to worry, because Bergering is kind of a streaky player. If he's not winning the Widow duel, that's where you kind of start to slip, because Bergering will try to do more extreme things to kind of try to win the duel. He's not going to switch off of the Widow because either the team sees it too much as a necessity to have a Widow v Widow matchup, or he just does not want to lose. He wants to prove that he can be effective on the Widow, so he's not going to switch. And that that creates problems because, well, your Widow is constantly losing the Widow duel, so you're basically down a player. And playing 5v6 in Overwatch is kind of next to impossible, just in terms of how the game works. So London definitely needs to watch out for Taimu, and they better have something that can stop him, delay him, shut him down, whatever. They need to do something. I think also they need to look at how the rest of their team stacks up. I mean, OG was looking really good, especially last week. He was doing some really great plays. They also have Mickey. Mickey is a really supportive guy. Yeah, just everyone on Dallas is just playing super well, and I think it's partially because the coach, as well as, again, Effect is out of the space. Rascal is out of the space. XQC is out of the space. So now you have all these disruptive personalities, all these big disruptive personalities, these dramatic personalities, and, pushed aside either permanently or, Effect out due to taking sort of a leave of absence to kind of recenter himself. The team is now looking great. And if Effect is playing this week, that also makes worry, because Effect he's really talented. So, I don't know. I think London can beat Dallas, but I think they also have the same chance at losing. So, I don't know how to feel about it. But hopefully they win. Hopefully we can have a 2-0 week. Hopefully London looks stronger than they did in week 2, and especially in week 1. We'll have to see. I am looking forward to seeing the matches and talking about them. But that's going to do it for us tonight, so please put your tray table up and return your seats to their full upright positions, because we're coming in for a landing. Zoom. Thank you for listening to the podcast, and we hope to see you in the skies real soon. Again, apologies for having to do so many solo episodes. You know, other people have lives. You know, clearly I don't. But you know, it's coordinating things. It's a whole bunch of stuff. We will definitely try to reassess what's going to be going on in the show. We're going to try to nail down at least one or two more consistent co-hosts that can show up every week, you know, on time and pump out a show. But at that, we'll see. You know, I really don't want to see this show go away, but we'll have to see. But yeah, thanks for listening, and come back next time.